Hi, thank you for watching. I'm Edwin Palmer, and in today's video, I want to talk about finishing that novel you started writing. So let's say you're an aspiring author who has written the plot of your novel, you have written about your characters, and you know where and when the story is going to take place. And you might even have written the first couple of chapters or the first chapter of your novel, but somehow you've gotten bogged down. Then this video is for you, because hopefully this video will get you back on track. Hopefully this video will motivate you, give you an impetus to start writing again. And I hope that this video will give you the confidence to start writing again and to feel strong and enthusiastic about it. So what did I do? Well, I asked 5 published authors to tell me what motivated them to finish their first novel. And luckily, they all answered my question, so I'm really thankful for that. And now I want to share their answers with you. And the first author who replied to my query was the author who's right there. And he's a British author, and his name is Rob Keeley. And I want to tell you something about him because he's written for Chain Gang and Newsjack for BBC Radio, and his books for children have been longlisted for the International Rubery Book Award and the Bath Children's Novel Award. So what motivated Rob Keeley to finish his first novel? Well, I have the answer right here. Here it is, so I'm gonna read it to you. It goes like this. Childish Spirits was my first novel for children, and the first book in the Spirits series. I wrote it back in 2011, and it then became the basis for my master's in creative writing. Back then was both a high and a low point in my life. I had recently been made redundant from a company I'd worked hard for 3 years, and I was feeling pretty low. At the same time, my first book, The Alien in the Garage, a short story collection for children, had just been published, and I had the offer to do the MA course. So writing Childish Spirits moved me away from the low point toward the high one. It went through several drafts, but I think you can still see me and my writing gradually gaining in confidence as the book goes on. Although I don't get deeply emotionally involved in writing on a personal level, I am an experienced professional with a job to do. I think it was the book that turned me from occasional jobbing writer into successful full-time author. Childish Spirits was the bridge between those phases, and its completion finally showed me that I could make it as an author, particularly when it gained me a distinction for my MA and went on to be longlisted for the Bath Children's Novel Award and nominated for the People's Book Prize. Sometimes it's just about getting on with the task and proving to yourself that you've got it. So I love this answer because it's so true. Sometimes you just need to keep on working, and you need to prove to yourself that you can finish your job, that you can finish your novel, because you can do it. You need to believe in yourself so that you can go on to finish your novel. So we're moving on because the second author who replied to my question was the guy who's right there. His name is A.C. Salter, and he's also a British author from Stroud, England, and he writes fantasy novels. A.C. Salter has written a trilogy which contains the books Eversong, Shadowjack, and Ethia. And what motivated him to finish his first novel? Well, I have the answer right here, so I'm going to read it to you. And it says this: my motivation was my wife. I had the trilogy already mapped out in my mind and began writing chapter by chapter and let my wife read each one. Luckily, it was good enough for her to keep asking for the next chapter. This is what motivated me the most. So I think this is a great piece of advice, because if you have a loved one who's willing to read your work, then ask if that person can do so, because it's really helpful. And if you notice that your beloved is really enthusiastic about what you've written, then that can spur you or motivate you to continue writing. The third person who was kind enough to answer my question was Robert Holt, and he's from St. Louis, Missouri, and he writes horror novels. So now I want to share Robert Holt's story with you. And he writes this. He wrote me this: my first novel was a real struggle. It took 8 years and countless rewrites. The motivation was in the story. It haunted my dreams until I had it done. The few I have written since have been finished in months, until the last one that I just released, There Are No Zombies in America. That one I started the day after Election Day, and it was me coming to terms with Trump, or my fears of Trump. Ever since then, I've been trying to come to terms with a horror that I may have given him some ideas. I very much like this answer too, and the gist of it is basically that although it haunted his dreams, finishing his first novel haunted his dreams, it was hard, but although it was really hard, it was a real struggle, he still went on doing it. He still went on to do it. So that's what it's all about. I'm so excited because I have a Canadian author on board too. His name is Ken Stark, and he lives in Vancouver, British Columbia, and he writes horror novels. Ken Stark has written a novel called Stage 3, and now I'm gonna tell you what motivated him to write his first novel. I have the answer right here. I'm sure every writer has the moment where they look back at a half-finished manuscript and wonder if it might just be the worst thing ever written. It's a natural byproduct of the creative process. After all, no one ever wants to just write a book. They want to write the book. They pour their heart and soul into their baby, and they want it to be perfect in every way. And yeah, I can really relate to this. I had my moment of doubt while writing my first book, Drone World, but I worked through it by constantly reminding myself that the most successful authors in the world became successful not because they dripped words onto the page as tiny, perfectly formed diamonds, but because they didn't stop trying. They didn't stop learning, and they didn't stop writing. And so I forced myself to keep going. I plodded along one sentence at a time, and I finally finished the book. And you know what? That book stunk to high heaven. As it happens, I was right to have my doubts. But even though Drone World will never see the light of day, I was also right to keep going. After all, the only way to become better at anything in this world is by doing it as often as you can and as well as you can. So the effort is never wasted. I am a better writer today than I was yesterday, and whether my next book winds up on the bestseller list or spends its life as a doorstop, I know I'll be an even better writer tomorrow because of it. I just love this answer. It's so great. I think all writers, whether they're at the beginning of their careers or at the end of their careers, I think all of us can relate to this. Last but definitely not least, Australian author Rosie Chappell answered my question. So she's an Australian author who lives in Perth, Western Australia, and she writes novels which take place in ancient Rome, and she's written Hannah's Heirloom trilogy. The Pomegranate Tree was the first book Rosie Chappell wrote. And here I have the answer to my question. So here in this letter she tells me what motivated her to finish it. So she's told me this. My motivation was my passion for the story I wanted to tell. It wasn't always easy, and I hit writer's block about 4 chapters in. When I stopped trying to force my characters to do what I thought they should do and let them tell their own tale, it began to flow again. After that, it virtually told itself. So after that, it virtually told itself. I had done the research, tying my story into an historical event, and the rest, as they say, is history. I love anything to do with ancient Rome, so to be able to share that love with people who enjoy reading about that era is a gift I will never take for granted. So it's a beautiful answer. Thank you, Rosie. And I think we can learn a lot from it too, and that the story can be the thing which motivates us the most, the fact that we want to tell a certain story. And although it can be difficult at times, you just need to keep on going. So I hope that I and these 5 awesome authors have helped you and that we have boosted your confidence and enthusiasm and motivation so that you can return to your laptop or whatever device you use to write on and finish your novel, because we know that you can do it. So you can do it, you're awesome, so get back to your writing because it's so much fun and you will really grow from the entire experience. Okay, if you want to get the links to these authors' websites, I've left them below this video. So, and last but not least, don't forget to comment if you feel like it, subscribe because that would really make my day, and like the video if you like it, and that's it. Have an awesome day. Thanks for watching.